This is Fable 3. We're on Xbox Series X. The game is looking and playing better than ever. I will mention that this one does not support auto HDR, just so that you know. I assume it has something to do with the way that the lighting and everything is handled, and just some games don't support it. That being said, obviously we have a great increase in regards to the fidelity and also the FPS. So with that, oh, and the loading screens, which are a big part of Fable 3. They come up fairly often when you're playing this one. Anyways, I spent quite a bit of time getting this one rolling. I went actually back, because when I did my 1X review of the game, I didn't have my save, so I actually pulled out ye old 360, dusted it off, threw all my saves into the cloud, and yeah, here we are. You get to have your doggo. You can play like co-op with people if you want, and you kind of go on an exciting adventure in order to save the land. It's actually a bit of a rebellion, I guess you could say. You're revolting. You're working with a group. You're trying to overthrow the current, I guess you could say, monarchy, and I think that's a fair kind of note to make, in order to take what is rightfully yours. There's also some little secret bits to it, and a little bit of a deeper narrative angle in regards to why certain events took place, which is kind of interesting towards the end. Now, this one I really do think gets a bad rap from people. It's a great game. It's got a good story, it's got neat characters, it's definitely on brand with Fable. They just tried to update things a bit and take it into a new generation. Wow, what's going on with that lady? That's weird. They tried to take it onto a new generation, right, in regards to a new age, the industrial times, and you know what? I don't think that really necessarily hit the mark for everyone. But myself, I really did quite enjoy this one. I think it's a pretty good looking game. I think it's on brand with the Fable franchise. Sure, it changes mechanics, but that's kind of what you want in sequels, is, you know, it to feel similar but also have a different edge to it. And I think this one, for me at least, hit the mark as being an enjoyable time. Now, the endgame is something that a lot of individuals are kind of, you know, questioning, or they don't like as much. So what happens basically that a lot of people dislike, and I'll try to keep this as spoiler free as possible, because this might very well be the first time you're looking at a Fable. First time you're wanting to play Fable 3. So the end game kind of becomes more about control and maintenance, as opposed to necessarily being something where you're, you know, doing story elements in order to factor into your ending, because a lot of Fable is about choice. And then there's like this epic sort of darkness coming. It's always looming when you're playing in the story. And you need to have certain things in order to do well in that end game. And that's where a lot of people kind of dislike it. Oh, I'm cheered. That's great. So you kind of, you know, make decisions and you do things, and that's kind of how it goes. But it's an expansive game that features what I like to call semi-open world environments. You're basically exploring through these hub-like areas, you know, battling different creatures, working through the story, meeting individuals, and then there's a sense of morality too as you make choices in regards to, you know, what you're doing, how the story is progressing, and of course you always have your pal the dog too. Or, like I mentioned earlier, you can have online going on too. But it's a deeper game too. It's an RPG. You're kind of building up your character, male, female, you know, whatever you want. Then you can have like children and a wife, and you can buy like basically shops and stuff if you'd like to purchase them in order to, you know, make different profits and stuff like that. It's an interesting game with complexities that basically take what Fable 2 did and amp them up a little bit further and present it in a different era, which I think is kind of fun and interesting. There's also a sense of a little bit of magic and action and a lot more, I guess you could say, gunplay integration, which we'll kind of show off as we head towards leaving the main area here. But yeah, it's kind of a well done game. I thought it was very interesting. I like the characters, and again, it's got a very distinct sort of British humor to it that I find hilarious. You know, chicken kicking, blasting things. As you can see, you know, the environment still has some bits of pop in. The, you know, technology they're using can't necessarily fix that, but it just gives us the best version of the game. I always sit there and be like, oh, I'd really like a Fable remaster, but then I take a look at these boosts to the game without even needing that, and it's kind of like, yeah, I don't necessarily think we actually need to see these games packaged as a remaster. Would I like to see that? Sure, yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what they would do there. I think it'd be cool. But we are getting a new Fable, and I think that's exciting enough, the fact that we're actually finally getting a new entry in the series, which to me is just kind of exciting to see, because I love the Fable games. To me, they're some of my favorite titles of all time. I love the RPG style of them. I like the combat. I like the mystical world, the cheeky humor, and the weird style that they present. I think it's just a lot of fun as you're kind of working up your skills, battling along, finding mystical things to deal with, meeting new characters. It's just a really cool series. I do really love them, and I do suggest checking them out if you've never played Fable before. Now is a good time to get kind of used to the style of play that it's presented from them, as we get closer towards a new entry in the series, which I think is kind of exciting. So it's also a game of like discovery and getting certain things, finding loot, completing missions, side quests, full missions, collecting treasure, working with your doggo in order to find things, doing like weird emotions. There's like you can go in the first person here too. It's kind of cool. These different emotions. You can like woo people and stuff, obviously, as you would try to get like a wife. And I think at the start you might have noticed it. I don't know if it was there. What are you pointing at? Good boy. At the beginning there, I had like a kid and everything, and you kind of, you do that, but it's from a royal standpoint. You basically go from royalty down to like not a peasant, but in a position of revolt. So it's a little bit different from other Fable games, I think, in that regard. It's just like the setup of it is a little bit of a different story. But I do really think it's a great game still. Like the atmosphere, the look of it, the visuals, it's just really well done. Now you might be noticing a bit of like I guess you could call it a slight blur effect. Now that's just like an engine style that kind of Fable deploys to adjust the look of the game. So just keep that in mind if you're wondering about that. Oh, not the Wolverines. These things are ridiculous. But yeah, there's just like lots of enemies, different things you can engage in, an intense story that kind of spans quite a lot of action. I mean, I think they got pretty good lengths to them, in regards to the main narrative, and then what you can do past that. They're just really, really fun games that I've thoroughly enjoyed over the years. Had a good time with. These things are so ridiculous. I do not like taking them on at all. Might actually just run out of this area. But yeah, there's lots of little cities you can visit and locations you can head to. And it just really plays along the edge of, fantasy and style of it, which is kind of fun. Oh yeah, not so tough now, are you? I think it was just like kind of a good evolution over the core concepts of what Fable is and what it's trying to provide. I just really do enjoy this series. I think they're so fun. I really like this one too. It's a good kind of finisher for what the other ones were building up to, even though it is something, this is Fable 3, but you don't have to have played any of the other Fables to enjoy what this is. The characters, like the settings and the places you kind of go, you'll be like, oh wow, look at the evolution of this. So it's kind of fun from the standpoint of playing Fable 1 to 2 to 3 to see the progression within the world. But if you just want to jump into like Fable 2 or Fable 3, or just play the first Fable, that's totally fine too. You're not going to be left out. You're not going to feel like you don't know what's going on, and I think that's great as well. So obviously there's like things you can collect within the world too, and your doggo's always kind of telling you what to do, and then there's elements of choice and decision making that do directly impact things. And then we've got the legendary Fable Trail appearing in front of us. This little glowing thing lets you know where you're supposed to go. And it's just such a little iconic part of the games, at least in my opinion, is seeing that kind of trail point, letting you know what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to be headed. It's just like a slight guidance little thing, a little guideline that's like, hey, you can go this way if you want to do stuff. And I like the style in this one. I think this game had like really good I guess you'd say, like clothing designs and stuff. The characters look fantastic. They've got like funny humor, and again, it's something where it can get like dark if you want it to, and everything like that. You can hold hands and take ladies and stuff places, which is kind of fun. I think this one's got more of a, well, because of the era, it's a slightly different thing, and there's like some little darker things too, as you can discover that within the area. Restoration. Oh yes, the restoration area. They always want to restorate. Goodbye, lady. But, you know, they've got all these little fun mechanics in it that just really come together to make such a delightful time. And I don't know if you've really noticed that, but as we go through the different areas, the loading is like instant. It's an absolute treat to be able to go through the game so fast. Because that was one thing about the Fable games, where I was kind of like not the biggest fan of, is the fact that loading would always take a pretty decent amount of time to get through different areas, and now it's not even something you would think about. It's like not even a minor inconvenience or anything, it just kind of goes fast. I don't really want to get caught up in this guy's thing because they all decide they want to go after me, which I don't like. Jeez. Not having that. See, they're tough creatures. Wow. You have to go and buy some health at the next stop. It's crazy. Get them. Battle them. I know we've got guns, but guns do not seem to do much against these guys. I also love how the AI is kind of like locked into certain situations and that. Like, I don't think they can actually come here due to the fact that there's like this AI guarding that spot, which is kind of cool. But yeah, you know, it's got some good combat to it as well. I just find these like creatures annoyingly tough to deal with, to the fact that I don't even want to really mess with them. But you can see, like, I have all these different abilities that I'm unleashing and different skills and tools we can have. You know, you can cut it, or you can just straight up kind of blast it, or you can use magic. It's just cool to have that variety. But you also see the sense of increased scale with this one in comparison to the other, you know, entries in the series. It's just like a much grander sort of game. And I think that's kind of fun too, just taking it all in. And then all these little exclamation points, you can go on little adventures and quests if you want to, take in what the world has to offer. I wonder, actually, can we get inside here? I remember this area being like a very enchanting sort of Reaper's Manor. Yeah, kind of a lovely, weird, messed up place. And while the loading would be a pain in the, you know, in the past, now it's just kind of like a brief, not even brief thing where you can just get into new areas. See, I think that's the magic of the loading that we're seeing with the console now, is the fact that we can have more areas that we can visit, because the games are going to render them so fast, or it's just going to load them so quickly, that we don't have to think of the, I guess you could say, inconvenience of having to load into different places. And I think that's going to add a lot to the value of our experiences, is the fact that if we want to go inside a house and there's like, oh, I gotta wait for a loading screen, you don't really have to think about that, because it's just gonna load the room right away, which I think is kind of a huge beneficial thing, especially when you're playing an RPG game. Like, I could think of a few titles off the top of my head where you have to sit there and actually wait to go into every single building. And while Fable's a little bit more of like, you have to wait to get into every subsection, now it's not even a big deal. It's just like, okay, I will go in there because it just loads. As we go back to Middlefield. What an enchanting series, though. Seriously. Just quite great. And if I haven't gotten it across, I do think that this one is worth checking out too. I hope people don't neglect it just due to the, you know, discussion over the long term that people have mentioned about this game, because I do think it's kind of fun. And it's kind of mystical and enchanting in its own way. And look at that doggo. He's just chilling, doing his helpful things. He's a good boy, good lad. Follows me around in battle too. It's kind of epic. But there's, you know, many different regions you can go to, and I think this one maybe even had more varied regions than in the past, because you can go to like this sand type area too, which is kind of crazy when you head over to that spot. And then we've got like this sort of hub area you can visit where you've got your loyal assistants, kind of some big actors to them, and you can customize how you look, see your accomplishments. It's kind of fun. And then you can see the different areas that make up the place. Oh, I've got a wife in Bowerstone, I guess. And you can see what kind of hidden secrets there are in the world. But, you know, as you can tell, there's all these different spots, a little bit more of a different type of environment. I'm trying to find where the sand area is. I'm going to fast travel these points. So I think we're there. There's Millfields, Bowerstone Old Quarter, Bowerstone Castle. Why is that undiscovered? That's weird. Thought I had all these. Oh yes, the other area. City of Aurora. That's kind of a cool spot. So let's fast travel there and just kind of show off how long it takes to actually get to a new area. Because in the past, you know, you do these like reviews and you would delete the the loading screens because, you know, people don't want to wait and they want to get right into gameplay action. So you would delete those. But now I can just leave them in because I'm lazy as an editor, but also the fact that it shows how quickly you get into areas. You don't even have to think about it. You're just immediately there and everything just kind of renders beautifully well. And as you're seeing, it's kind of like just a sand version of... Oh, Kid Skull's got more chicken kicks than me, eh? It's kind of just like a sand area that you can visit and take in and buy new things from and explore different types of like enemies within the environment too, which is kind of cool. Kicking the chickens, it's always a blast. It's actually one of the defining parts of the Fable series is being able to kick the chickens. It's something a lot of people take great pride in, and I think there's usually also in each of the games like a little mini game where you actually have to kick chickens fast enough in so much time. It's kind of a fun little thing. But yeah, it's such an expansive and varied entry in the series. And I don't like how it gets looked back upon. Because I do find this one fun. I had a really good time working through the story and, you know, trying to battle up against the darkness that was rising. And they're all really good in their own ways. They each bring something a little bit different and a little bit fun to the table while being similar and at the same time having different attributes. I think that's kind of charming. Any other chickens I've missed kicking? I also love how it gives you like a comparison against your friends always in the corner. I think that's kind of fun. You know, when you're doing different things, taking out enemies. It's just like a nice little competitive comparison thing you can do amongst your friends because they might not even think about it. And I'm assuming at this point, you know, most of your friends have kind of maybe moved on from the game or locked in a certain score. So those aren't really going to change. You're more easily able to kind of, you know, catch up and surpass your friends' village. I have more villagers killed than some of my friends. That's kind of funny. But just like taking in these different areas, it also felt like a game that was a bit more interactive within the environments and how you move through them. I thought it did a better job there, but just like these expansive areas, it's kind of impressive, at least I think so. Maybe there was a lot of comparison at the time, but I still find Fable to be such a delightful experience no matter what one you're playing. Unleashing your magic and your abilities and taking out different enemies. Whoa, I should have bought some health potions, I guess. Because I was not expecting to have such a kind of battle in the desert. But I guess when you leave a civilized town, this is what you get. Did that other one just like appear out of nowhere? That's kind of dark. But yeah, it's just kind of a fun and enchanting and perhaps also at times challenging game too. And it should perhaps, if you can, experience it with another. I think that just adds to the fun a little bit more of it. And also don't forget to start a family because, you know, that's a fun part of the Fable games is doing that. And buying land. Well, we kind of talked about those aspects. But it's just, it's an expansive world. It's one where there's a lot you can do, and they played with the mechanics in a fun way that I think, you know, does deserve to have a little bit more praise than what the series had given it. Brightwall Village, that's kind of an enchanting place. I like the Mist Peak areas, though. They're very lovely with the, you know, the different, like, snow-type look to it. It's just kind of cool, and this really laid the foundation, I think, too, well, some of the ideas and everything were carried over to the whole design for, like, Fable Heroes, or did Fable Heroes come first, which is like the little puppet spin-off. That one's also fun if you never played that one. It's a little different. It's more of like a party brawler game, but still quite enjoyable. Oh wow, I'm behind on hours played compared to that guy. Yeah, no, I did want to switch off and show another save, but that save I've been having some issues getting it kind of loaded cloud-wise, so I'm just glad I was able to get this one back because, it was one of my favorite, well, this was my primary character and stuff, which was kind of fun, but yeah, it's a blast diving into these old games, the Fable series particularly, because I think it's just a really well done series, and it's brought in some cherished nostalgic memories, that's for sure. It's a great time, and that is Fable 3.